Well, good morning. Merry Christmas. Not as many people said Merry Christmas now as at Christmas Eve. Some people are like, it's over, let it go. Well, sorry, I love Christmas, so I am all about Christmas. So, Merry Christmas and soon to be Happy New Year. My name is Taylor Mabry. I'm the youth director here at the Valley Church, and I am so excited to be just sharing God's Word with you today and just diving into this with you as we can just see what He has to say to us. Before we start, we're going to be wrapping up the Why Christmas series. I'm doing the 5th week here, and it's about the aftermath of Christmas. And it's about what can we learn from the aftermath of the first Christmas. Because we all know that, like, after Christmas ends, there's, like, this week between, like, Christmas and New Year's where, like, I don't remember what day it is, and, like, calories don't count. Like, it's just this blank spot where you're just kind of confused and you're walking around like, what happened? Because Christmas is just so exciting. And so that's kind of what we're going to be learning about today and then applying it to how can that also apply to year-round, not just Christmas. So I'm still new here to the Valley. I've only been here about 7 months, so that I'm not a complete stranger, I thought I'd let you guys know a little bit about myself. As I said before, my name is Taylor Mabry. I was born here in Ohio. I lived for part of my life in Springfield, and then the other part of my life, my very short life, I'm still very young, in Columbus, in the city. And so I just grew up in an amazing family. I'm a middle child. All middle children in here. I relate to you. I understand. I have an older brother and I have a younger brother, and I have amazing parents. I grew up, of course, as I said, in Springfield and Columbus, but then I actually went to college in Kansas, about 15 hours away at a school called Barclay College. I graduated with a degree in youth ministry and a minor in psychology, and then came to work here. And just so that I can relate to some of you guys on a very personal level, I just thought I'd let you know I love dogs. That's like all I need to say with some people. They're like, I got you. So that's just a little bit about myself, and I'm just really excited today to be here with you. And when I was thinking about this, what came to my mind was actually one of my first memories of Christmas. When we lived in Springfield, I love Springfield, and so I remember a lot that went on there. And one of my first memories, when I was about 6 years old, my brothers and I received a dog for Christmas, which of course is like every little child's dream to receive a dog for Christmas. And so we were super excited. We received him a few days before Christmas. I think it might have been Christmas Eve. His name was Biscuit. Biscuit was an awesome little dog. And so we received this dog, and in my mind as a 6-year-old, it was set to be like the perfect Christmas, because as far as I remember, like, it was snowing outside, and of course to a kid, kids at Christmas are amazing because it's magical and it's fun and it's exciting and presents. And so Christmas was just a wonderful time, and we had received a dog, and it was snowing, and it was set to be the best Christmas ever in a little kid's mind. And so I remember Christmas Day, we kind of were unwrapping all the gifts, and we were really excited, and my brothers and I, of course, are taking inventory of what we got, and we're there, and all the wrapping paper is everywhere. And I think that I remember this because it was probably one of the first times that I saw the magic of Christmas and then, like, reality. And that's probably why it stood out to me, because as we're excited and as we're opening gifts, my dad was over there, and he's looking at the wrapping paper, and he's moving it aside, and all of a sudden I just remember him going, "Ugh, Teresa." And he said my mom's name. Her name's Teresa. And he was like, "Teresa, look." And through the living room, down like almost into the hallway, the dog had gotten so nervous that he had peed a very long yellow line all the way through and down into the hall because all of the wrapping paper and all the little kids running around. And so they were like, and it was like all the air had just been let out of the room. And Christmas was clearly over. Like, we now had to clean this up, and there's gross wrapping paper everywhere. And so I feel like this story is not unique to me. I mean, you may not have had a dog do that, but sometimes we can build something up in our mind so much, and then, like, it happens, or there's, like, a bad thing that might happen, and then, like, the aftermath of that is, like, a real big letdown, and we're kind of confused, and we're kind of just like, well, what do we do now? Like, what now? And this isn't just unique to Christmas. This is unique to like lots of different events in our lives where afterwards, in the aftermath, we're really confused. We don't know what to do. We're just kind of in the what now phase. And so what can the first Christmas teach us about the aftermath? And so we're going to be looking at the very first Christmas, and we're going to be looking at the wise men and reading about them. So if you have your Bible, go ahead and turn to Matthew chapter 2, verses 1 through 12. And that is page 956 for those of you who might be using the Bibles on the seats. Go ahead and turn there. And we're going to be looking at this story of the wise men, and then we're going to go ahead and dive into it and see what we can learn from it. So Matthew chapter 2, verses 1 through 12. Now after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, "Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him." And I just want to interject real quick. I'm going to make a few comments throughout to help us kind of have a context, a cultural setting. Who are these wise men? Who are we talking about? We don't know. Sorry. We really don't know who they are. A lot of people say that they're kings or that they're rich rulers or even magicians or astronomers. It really doesn't tell us or give us a lot of information as to who these guys were. As far as we know, they weren't Jewish, so they really weren't a part of God's chosen people, and they were just seeking after this prophecy, but we really have no clue even truly where they came from. But what matters to us is that wise men from the east sought after Jesus. So these wise men have traveled a very long distance. They come to King Herod and they go, "We are looking for the king. Where is he?" So we're going to pick up in verse 3. When Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. And assembling all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Christ was to be born. They told him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for it is written by the prophet, and you, O Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For from you shall come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod summoned the wise men secretly and ascertained from them what time the star had appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word, that I too may come and worship him." After listening to the king, they went on their way, and behold, the star that they had seen when it rose went before them until it came to rest over the place where the child was. And before we conclude it, just to give a little more context with where these wise men were, most scholars agree, and most scholars say, that actually the wise men had been traveling and searching for Christ for about 2 years. So that picture of the nativity scene where there's the wise men and the shepherds and Mary and Joseph and baby Jesus, take the wise men out of that. They were not there. They arrived about 2 years after Jesus had been born. So they were traveling for a very, very long time. This was not just a hop in your car and drive the next state over. This was a very long journey for them. And so that helps us understand actually more of what we can learn afterwards after we continue the story here. So jumping up back into verse 10, when they saw the star, they rejoiced exceedingly with great joy. And going into the house, they saw the child with Mary his mother, and they fell down and worshipped him. Then, opening their treasures, they offered him gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And being warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they departed to their own country by another way. So, the wise men arrive after Christ is born, in a little bit of the aftermath, as we might call it. And so what can we learn from these wise men about our lives and the aftermath in our lives? The first thing that we can learn is actually that the wise men seek. When I was studying this, these wise men sought after Christ in a way that kind of blows my mind. This wasn't really in probably their religion. This wasn't really in what they typically did, and yet they went out of their way to pursue this king that they knew was coming. That's dedication right there. I am not that dedicated, I will have to admit. I will openly say I'm not often that dedicated to something that I don't even believe in. And so they went out of their way to seek after Christ. When I was doing this, it actually reminded me of one of my favorite Disney movies, which is Toy Story. I love all 4 of them. And in all of the Toy Stories, the toys have to go and find their kid. So they call their owner basically their kid. They say, oh, I have a kid. So Andy was actually the kid in the first 3 Toy Story movies. And in each movie, they lose him, and then they have to go find him. And then in the second one, they lose him again, and they have to go find him. And the third one, again. And it just happens again and again. And then the fourth one, spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen this fourth one yet, Bonnie, the new kid, also they lose Bonnie, and so they have to go find Bonnie. And so in all of these movies, they are just dedicated, and they go through crazy things in order to get to their kid. It is the most important thing to them to get to their kid. And in the third movie, there's this line that really has never struck me before now, when Andy is actually talking to little Bonnie, and he's actually giving his toys to her. And he's like, here you go, these are now yours. And he holds up Woody, who's the cowboy, and he says, the thing that makes Woody special is that he'll never give up on you. And that had never really resonated with me until all of a sudden I was like, wow. Here's the thing that makes God special, there's a lot of things, but he's never going to give up on you. But how many times can we look at our own life and we go, I definitely gave up on God? Especially when you're confused, when life is awkward and you're kind of in this after phase of an event has happened, a crisis has happened, even a good event has happened. It could be positive, and you still come off of it and you're like, okay, what now? You have a kid. Okay, now what now? You get married. Okay, what now? You're in a car accident. It's a week later. Okay, what now? You lose that job that you've been working for years. Okay, what now? And it's weird, and it's confusing, and it's awkward, but wise men seek. Because in the Bible, God tells us actually in Jeremiah 29:13, he says, you will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. You will find God when you are seeking him with all your heart. And in the aftermath, it's really easy to write it off and not go after him because we're just kind of in this awkward land of confusion. But he's like, look for me. He is there, but you cannot see something that you're not looking for. And so he calls us to seek him. That actually leads into our second point of what we can learn is wise men worship. Wise men worship God. The first thing that the wise men did when they found Jesus wasn't give him the gifts. The first thing that they did was they actually bowed down and worshiped him. And that kind of amazes me because my reaction to events, good and bad, is often not to worship God. We think a lot of times that you have to be happy, and that's worship, is when we're just like, woo, so happy. And that's not exactly true. Worship is acknowledging God for who he is, and it's acknowledging, I am here, you are God, and I am not. In the 1980s, there was a resort called Eros Holiday Village, and it opened up in Sudan's Red Sea coastline. And the property was advertised with all these colorful pamphlets as a diving resort, and it was super colorful, and they were like, come and be on the beaches of Sudan, and you can come and relax, and that's how it was advertised. And it was actually very popular, and people, a lot of tourists went to it for the few years that it was open. It was only open for a few years. And it's actually quite a feat considering that the hotel in this resort was actually an elaborate front for one of the most inventive undercover espionage operations in recent memory. Israel's national intelligence agency, Mossad, had actually purchased the resort to help Ethiopian Jews escape the persecution that was going on in Sudan. And so by day, they ran this resort. These agents, these Mossad agents, ran this resort by day. And by night, while the tourists were asleep, they would sneak people through to help them escape on the coastline. There was recently a movie that was created about this. And at the end of the movie, they showed some footage of the original operation. And in the original operation, when these Ethiopian Jews finally made it to Israel, there was some footage of these people, and they were kissing the ground. It was the first thing that they did when they stepped off the boat or the plane. They kissed the ground. And that kind of worship, that kind of reverence, they were so glad to be where they had been searching and be where God had told them to be. They were so excited that the first thing they thought of was to worship. When I am happy, when a good event happens, I often don't even think to worship, let alone when a bad event happens. It is very difficult to worship God when we can have this misconception of what it means. And I'm not telling you that you have to be happy when you are confused, when something bad has happened. I'm not telling you that you have to always be joyful, because it is very difficult to be joyful when you lose your job, you can't find a job, your marriage is just having difficulties, your kids aren't listening, you're being bullied at school. It is not easy to worship God. And I'm going to say this because I think that some people need to hear this, because we do not like to say it. But it is okay to not be okay. I'm going to say that again. It is okay to not be okay. It's not about being okay. It's not about always understanding what God's doing. It's not about being perfectly clear in the aftermath of things. It's about acknowledging who God is, saying, God, I know you're still in control. I'm putting my faith and trust in you and worshiping him. In the aftermath of difficulty or events, are you still worshiping God? Are you still worshiping God once the new year comes around and life kind of gets back to normal? How are you choosing to respond? And that leads into our final point, which is wise men obey. So the wise men were warned in a dream right after they did all of this to not go back to King Herod and to go and take another route back to their country. I can imagine that this was not easy, because the king had told King Herod, who we know is not a very nice guy, King Herod told them to come back to them, but they're hearing from God to not go back to him. And they chose to obey God. So I have to brag for a second. I love my parents. My parents are amazing. They taught me a lot growing up. But one of the things that has always stuck in my mind is that they would always say, Taylor, you are your own moral agent. You are responsible for the choices that you make. You're also responsible for how you respond to things. I can't always control how someone else responds to me, but I can control how I respond to them. And how am I going to respond to them? When you're in the aftermath, you cannot always control your surroundings. You cannot control the events that are happening. You cannot control everything, which is our natural instinct. But you can obey. And you can choose to take the next right step. And you might be like, well, Taylor, what is the next right step? Because it can be very confusing in times of awkwardness and confusion and aftermath when something big happened and then you're like, I don't know what to do. It's really confusing as to what to choose next. Well, I will say you do have tools. Find other people around you who can support you. The Bible is a great place to start with finding what to do next. And that might even be too much in of itself. Sometimes it's just doing what you know is right. For some of us, the next right step, the next right thing might be that you are patient with your children and you try really hard to not get angry. The next right step might be that you are loving to the next person that you meet. The next right step might be that you just try not to get frustrated when the cashier at the grocery store is not going fast enough and you're like, hello, I'm on a schedule. That might be the next right step, is just reminding yourself in that confusion, in that chaos, to take a step back and go, okay, God, I know I'm in control of my actions right here. What do you want me to do? Praying for the clarity and then taking that next right step. And slowly but surely, you're going to get out of that. You're going to keep moving forward. It's all about searching for God, seeking him, worshiping him in that moment, and then obeying him when he calls you to do something, even when you may not understand fully what's going on. And the bottom line is that God will always be there, and he's still watching over you, even in all of the confusion, even in all of the chaos, even in the moments when you're like, I honestly just don't know what else to do. God is always there. What you're responsible of is how you're going to choose to respond to it. One of my clearest memories of college was actually my first day of being at college. And I remember it because my parents dropped me off, my family dropped me off, and they drove away. Of course, I was crying. I'm an emotional person. I accept it. It's just who I am. So I was crying, walking back to the dorms, and I was really confused, and I'm like, I'm in this new place. I'm 15 hours away. I have no idea what I'm doing here. I go back to my room. My roommate's not there. I go to dinner. I come back. My roommate's still not there, or my new roommate. And I remember sitting on my bed, and I hadn't decorated that much at all. And I remember just staring at the blank wall. And I was like, okay, what now? I'm in this new place. I don't know anyone. I'm completely alone. And it was probably one of the times that I felt the most alone in my entire life. But at the same time, in that moment, I had a moment of realizing I am not alone, because this is a time in my life when at that moment is probably one of the first times that I felt God's presence so much that it was almost like he was sitting in the room with me. You are not alone when you're in the what now, when you're in the aftermath, when you're in the confusion. You are not alone, and he is always looking out for you. When I was doing this sermon, the wise men leave. And I was like, okay, they leave because God's like, hey, I need to protect my son, and I'm going to send you back another way so that King Herod doesn't come and attack as soon. And that's kind of what we think about and what we accept. And that is true. I believe that is true. However, when I was reading this, it also kind of all of a sudden dawned on me, I wonder how much God also sent the wise men to go another way to protect them. Because I wasn't there. I don't know King Herod, but from what the Bible tells me, he wasn't a very nice dude. And I don't really know how safe they would have been. And sometimes in the confusion and in moments when we're not sure what's going on, and we feel like God's calling us to do something, it might be because he's trying to protect us from other things as well. And so my challenge to you, and what we can do to respond to this, and what we can do to respond to the aftermath of this, is the three questions of: are you seeking God? Are you worshiping God even when it may not make sense? And are you choosing to obey and do the next right thing? And after that, you start to build momentum, and you put one foot in front of the other, and you're going to get out of these holiday blues, and you're going to move on into the new year. And when bad things happen, when events happen that we can't control, when we're confused and frustrated and it's awkward and we don't know what to do, my challenge to you, and what I hope that we can take away from this today, and what I took away from this, was that I hope that we can still be seeking God, worshiping God, and choosing to obey God, even amidst all the chaos. And so that's what I want us to do for the next month, year, several years. All right, let me pray over you guys. God, I just thank you so much for today, and I thank you for the ability that we have to just come here and learn about you. And I pray that in this moment, as people are confused and just trying to walk through life, and it's just awkward, and they don't know, and they're like, what now, God? That they are just seeking you, and that they are worshiping you, and that they are just obeying what you have. And we thank you so much that you are present with us, that you are here, that you are in us, around us, and just guiding us toward each step. And I pray for people who may not know that, who may not feel that quite yet, that you are tapping them on the shoulder, and that you are like, I am here. I am present, and I'm never going to leave you. I pray that we have the strength to just keep making the next right step towards you, God. I pray for everyone for New Year's, and that we just have a great and wonderful rest of our Christmas season. We love you, Lord, and thank you. Amen.
Thank you for joining the Valley Church today. We invite you to experience our worship celebration in person each Sunday at one of our campuses located in either Piqua or Troy. Services at our campuses begin at 9:15 and 11 a.m., and the dress is always casual. You can learn more about the Valley's wide range of activities, programs, and services by visiting us on the web at thevalley.church. You can also join us weekly each Sunday online at our iCampus or through Facebook Live by clicking those buttons on our website at thevalley.church. People of all ages can experience the excitement and the joy of being part of a growing church that is truly on God's mission, a church where you can belong and discover your purpose in life. We hope to see you soon.